Young was thorough and attentive, greeting guests politely as they passed. Bellboys assisted with luggage, smiling and speaking respectfully. The restaurant staff worked seamlessly together, ensuring that every guest felt seen and valued. He stopped to watch a family at the dining area. The mother and father were laughing quietly, their children enjoying their meals. The waitress serving them had learned from the previous day's lessons. She anticipated needs, listened carefully, and responded warmly. The parents looked relieved and happy, as though the care they received in the hotel mattered more than the food or the view. Satisfied, he moved to the lobby once more. Guests were checking in smoothly, guided by the receptionist who had once judged him. Now she was confident, attentive, and genuinely kind. A businessman approached her with a question about his booking, and she responded clearly, patiently, and politely. The man observed quietly, feeling a sense of quiet satisfaction. The transformation he had hoped for was unfolding before his eyes. By afternoon, he called a short meeting with the manager and a few senior staff members. "I want to discuss the long-term vision for this hotel," he said. "What we've done so far is important, but sustainability is key. Respect and kindness must be embedded in the culture, not just practiced for a few days." The manager nodded. "Absolutely, sir. We've already started planning regular workshops and check-ins. We want every employee to feel empowered to act respectfully and confidently." "That's good," the man said. "But also I want to ensure that guests themselves feel safe to give feedback. We should have a system where their voice matters and is heard promptly. That way, we can continue to improve continuously." The senior staff agreed, inspired by his vision. They realized that leadership wasn't about issuing orders but about guiding, listening, and nurturing growth. Later that evening, the man walked through the lobby again, this time noticing the small details that had changed. The lobby felt warmer, more inviting. Guests smiled more easily, employees moved with purpose, and the atmosphere was peaceful yet lively. The hotel was no longer just a building for transactions. It had become a space where people felt valued and seen. The receptionist approached him again. "Sir, may I say something?" she asked softly. "Of course," he replied. I've learned so much in these past few days. Not just about work, but about people and about respect. I realize now that how we treat someone can change their day, their perspective, maybe even their life. I want to continue learning and helping others do the same." He looked at her and smiled warmly. "That is exactly what I hoped you would take away. Real growth is not just about rules or procedures. It's about understanding and caring for others. That is the heart of this hotel." She nodded, her eyes shining. "Thank you, sir." The man spent the rest of the evening observing the hotel quietly. He didn't need to intervene. The staff had internalized the lessons. They were taking responsibility for their actions, practicing empathy, and creating a culture of kindness. Guests were leaving satisfied, many returning from their rooms to thank staff personally for their warmth and attention. As the night deepened, the man returned to his office on the top floor. The city lights glimmered below, reflecting on the glass of the windows. He thought about how a simple act of unfair treatment had become an opportunity for growth and change. What had started as a moment of frustration and disrespect had transformed into something powerful. A chance to lead, teach, and inspire. He reflected on the receptionist, who had once judged him without knowing him. Now she had grown, and in doing so she had helped her colleagues grow too. The staff had learned not just about service, but about empathy, awareness, and humanity. The hotel itself had been transformed, not by force, but by guidance, patience, and example. There was a soft knock on his door. The receptionist stood there again, holding a small folder of notes. "Sir, I wanted to show you some ideas for ongoing staff development," she said quietly. "I've spoken to several colleagues, and we've put together some suggestions to keep this momentum going. We want to ensure this becomes a permanent culture, not just a temporary change." He smiled warmly. "That is excellent. I'm proud of you and the team. Your initiative will help make this hotel more than just a place to stay. It will be a place where respect and dignity are felt by everyone." She looked relieved and grateful. "Thank you, sir. We will make sure it happens," he nodded. "I have no doubt you will." After she left, he looked out the window again. The hotel glowed under the city lights, alive with warmth and purpose. He thought about all the guests who had come and gone, and all the employees who had grown in understanding. The small moments of kindness and awareness would ripple through every interaction, shaping the experience of everyone who entered. He realized that true leadership wasn't about wealth, titles, or control. It was about influence, empathy, and the quiet ability to inspire people to be better than they were before. And tonight, the hotel was living proof of that truth. The man leaned back in his chair, content. He didn't need recognition or applause. The real reward was the change he had witnessed. The receptionist who had learned humility and respect, the staff who had embraced kindness, and the hotel that had become a place where people were valued for who they were, not judged for appearances. Tomorrow would bring new guests, new challenges, and new opportunities for learning. But for now, he allowed himself to reflect and appreciate the progress that had been made. The hotel had been given a second chance, a chance to be more than a building, more than rooms, more than a business. It had become a home of respect, empathy, and humanity. He knew that this story would continue long after he left the lobby each evening. The lessons would stay with the staff, shaping their interactions for years to come, and every guest who walked through the doors would feel the impact, whether they knew it or not. In the end, he realized that what mattered most wasn't the ownership of the hotel, the deals, or even the policies. What mattered most was the opportunity to lead with heart, to turn a moment of injustice into a moment of growth, and to show that true power lies not in what we have, but in how we treat others. As the city lights shimmered outside, he smiled quietly to himself. The hotel had been transformed. The staff had been transformed. And perhaps most importantly, the culture of respect, dignity, and humanity had been restored. And in that quiet glow of understanding and change, he felt at peace, knowing that a simple act of unfairness had become the catalyst for something extraordinary, a story of growth, compassion, and true leadership that would be remembered for years to come. The hotel would never be the same again. Right away, they walked to a small conference room just off the lobby. The receptionist followed, nervous, fidgeting with her pen. Her hands shook slightly, but she held her head high, ready to face what was coming. The man didn't speak immediately. He simply looked at both of them, calm and composed, allowing a moment of silence to settle over the room. Then he spoke, his voice steady and warm. "I wanted to speak with you today because what happened 2 days ago is serious," he said. "Not because I am angry, but because I want to make sure it never happens again, to me or to anyone else." The receptionist swallowed hard. I understand, sir," she said quietly. He nodded. "I want to start by saying that I do not wish to punish anyone. Mistakes happen. People act without thinking sometimes, but it's important to understand the consequences of those actions and to learn from them." Her eyes were fixed on him, listening intently. She knew that this was not a lecture to shame her, but a conversation to guide her. "You were disrespectful to a guest," he continued. "That guest could have been anyone. Someone tired, someone stressed, someone simply looking for rest. And the way you treated me, and potentially others, is unacceptable in this hotel. This place is built on respect, kindness, and fairness. That is not negotiable." The receptionist nodded slowly, her voice trembling. "I understand. I'm very sorry, sir. I didn't realize how much my actions affected someone. I will do better." He smiled gently, not in mockery, but with reassurance. "I believe you. But words are only part of it. Actions matter more. That is why we are going to work together to make sure this lesson is understood by everyone. Not just you, but the entire staff." The manager shifted slightly, unsure whether to speak, but the man addressed him as well. "I want you to lead by example. Make sure that your team understands that every guest deserves respect, regardless of how they look, where they come from, or what they carry with them. This hotel should be a place where everyone feels welcome." The manager nodded earnestly. "Absolutely, sir. I will ensure it happens." The man turned back to the receptionist. "I also want you to take part in training your colleagues. Share what you've learned. Be honest about your mistake. Help others understand how even small judgments can affect someone's experience here." Her eyes filled with tears. I will, sir. I promise." "Good," he said softly. "Growth comes from recognizing mistakes and helping others avoid them. That is how we build a stronger, better team." They left the conference room, and the man began walking through the lobby once more. The staff were quietly observing, some whispering to each other, wondering what the conversation had entailed. They could feel the shift. It was not fear that filled the room, but understanding. Everyone had been reminded of why they were there and what their responsibilities truly meant. Later that day, a guest approached the reception desk with a complaint. The receptionist from before stepped forward, her posture confident now, her voice calm and respectful. "I understand your concern," she said. "Let me see how we can resolve this for you." The man watched from a distance. Her handling of the situation was perfect, not because she was trying to impress him, but because she had internalized the lesson. She listened carefully, responded thoughtfully, and ensured the guest felt heard and valued. The tension dissolved, replaced by gratitude from the guest. The man smiled quietly. This, he thought, was the real change, not in titles or rules, but in hearts and actions. In the afternoon, he went to the hotel restaurant, where the chef was preparing meals for the lunch crowd. He noticed the waitstaff working together, communicating respectfully and efficiently. The energy was different, lighter, happier, more cooperative. He spoke to the chef privately. "Your team has done well today. Keep encouraging them. The way they treat guests reflects who they are, not just what they do." The chef nodded, inspired by the calm authority in the man's words. "I will, sir. Thank you for the guidance." The man spent the rest of the afternoon walking through different sections of the hotel, checking the rooms, visiting housekeeping, and even stopping by the gym and spa. Everywhere he went, he greeted staff warmly, asked questions, and offered gentle advice. No one felt afraid. Instead, they felt encouraged. By early evening, the hotel was full of energy. Guests were enjoying their stay, employees were engaged and motivated, and the atmosphere felt lighter and brighter than it had in years. The man returned to his office on the top floor and sat quietly by the window, looking out over the city. He thought about what had happened over the past 2 days. The denial of service, the shift in ownership, and now, the transformation within the hotel itself. It had all begun with one small act of injustice, and yet it had led to something far greater. A chance to teach, to guide, and to change lives. There was a soft knock on his door. The receptionist stepped in, holding a notepad. She had tears in her eyes, but her posture was strong. "Sir," she said quietly, "I wanted to thank you again, not just for forgiving me, but for showing me the kind of person I want to be. I've learned so much in these past 2 days, and I want to make sure it continues." He smiled warmly. "That's all I could hope for. Remember, it's not about perfection. It's about awareness, effort, and respect. Keep doing that, and you'll make a difference every day." Her voice trembled, but she nodded. "I will, sir. I promise." He watched her leave, feeling a sense of calm satisfaction. This was the true power of leadership, not in asserting control, but in inspiring growth and understanding. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the city, he walked back through the lobby one last time for the day. Staff smiled and waved, guests thanked him for his attention, and the hotel itself seemed to breathe a little easier, freed from the tension that had plagued it just days before. He paused at the entrance, looking out at the streets below. The lights of the city reflected in the glass doors, and the sounds of life drifted in. He knew that the journey was far from over, but the first steps had been taken. Real change wasn't instant, but it was possible. One act, one conversation, one lesson at a time. With a calm breath, he turned and walked to his car. The city lights flickered on, and the night air was cool and quiet. He felt a deep sense of peace. The hotel had become more than just a building. It had become a place of learning, respect, and humanity. He knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, but he also knew that the people around him were growing stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. And that, he thought, was the true measure of success. As he drove away, he looked back at the glowing hotel, feeling a quiet pride. This wasn't about revenge or punishment or proving a point. It was about creating a space where people could feel safe, valued and respected, where mistakes could become lessons, and lessons could become change. And in that moment, he knew that the story of the hotel had been rewritten, not by force, not by anger, but by patience, kindness, and the quiet power of human understanding. The hotel would never be the same again. Next morning, the hotel buzzed with energy, but it was different now. The nervous tension that had once filled the air was gone, replaced by a quiet confidence and warmth among the staff. The lobby was bright with sunlight streaming through the glass doors, and the gentle hum of conversations and footsteps made the space feel alive. The man arrived quietly, as always, walking through the entrance with a calm presence that had become familiar to everyone. He noticed the receptionist immediately. She stood at her desk, smiling naturally at each guest, her posture confident yet approachable. There was no hint of the uncertainty that had shadowed her the first day he arrived. She glanced at him and gave a respectful nod, acknowledging him without fear. He returned the gesture with a small, encouraging smile. The manager met him near the lobby. "Sir," he said quietly, "I wanted to give you an update. The staff have been working closely together. They've adopted the new approach you encouraged, and it's already having an impact. Guests are noticing the difference, and even returning visitors have commented on how welcoming the hotel feels now." The man nodded thoughtfully. "That's good to hear. But change is continuous. We must keep guiding them, helping them grow, and reminding them of why respect matters." As he spoke, a small group of hotel employees approached. The receptionist stepped forward first. "Sir," she said softly, "I wanted to thank you for the lessons, for your patience, and for giving me a chance to improve. I feel like I'm seeing things differently now. I want to help the team be better too and make sure no guest feels unwelcome." He smiled gently. "That's all I hoped for. Understanding, growth, and kindness. That is the most important part of this hotel. Not the rooms, not the profits, but the people and the experience we create." She nodded, eyes bright. "I will do my best." The man turned his attention to the staff around her. "I want each of you to take responsibility for the experience of every guest," he said. "It's not just a policy, it's not just training. It's about who we are. Your actions matter, and the way you treat others defines this hotel as a place of respect and dignity." The employees listened attentively, absorbing his words. They understood now that being part of this hotel wasn't just a job. It was a responsibility. Later that day, the man walked through the hallways and rooms, observing the staff at work. "Housekeeping." The previous day was already at her desk, her posture straighter than before. She glanced at him nervously, but this time there was a hint of respect in her eyes. He paused near the manager's office and waited for a moment. The manager came out with a folder in hand, looking both nervous and eager. "Good morning, sir," the manager said. "I wanted to brief you on today's schedule and the improvements we've started implementing." "Thank you," he replied softly. "Let's walk through everything." They moved together through the lobby, stopping at the front desk. The receptionist was assisting a couple checking in. Her voice was polite, warm, and professional. The man noticed how different she was from yesterday. No hesitation, no judgment, just service with respect. "She's already learning quickly," the manager whispered. The man nodded. "That's good to see. Sometimes a small lesson is enough to change a person." They walked toward the hotel's event hall. The manager opened the doors, and the space was empty except for a few tables set up for a small meeting. "Today we'll have our first official staff workshop," the manager explained. "It's designed to teach customer care and sensitivity, things we've overlooked in the past." "Good," the man said. "Make it personal. Let them see why it matters, not just what to do." The staff gathered slowly, murmuring among themselves. Some looked excited, others apprehensive. The man stood at the front of the room, his hands clasped calmly. He didn't raise his voice, and he didn't demand attention. He simply began to speak. "I want to share a story with you," he said gently. "It's about yesterday. Something happened that should never have happened in this hotel." He paused, letting everyone settle into silence. "Yesterday I came here as a guest. I asked for a room. I was polite, patient, and respectful. Yet I was denied service. The reason? Not a mistake in the system. Not a full hotel. But because of how I looked." The room went quiet. The receptionist from the previous day shifted uncomfortably, her eyes downcast. "I tell you this not to shame anyone," he continued, "but to show the impact of our actions. Every guest that walks through these doors is trusting you to treat them with respect. Their experience in this hotel should not depend on their clothes, their skin, or their background. It should depend on the service, the care, and the warmth we provide." He looked around the room, making eye contact with as many staff as he could. Yesterday could have been a moment of shame. But today it can be a moment of change. We have the power to turn a mistake into something meaningful. A few people nodded, quietly absorbing his words. "Some of you may think this doesn't matter, or that it's just a hotel, he said. But it does matter. Every interaction matters. Every smile, every greeting, every small act of kindness, it matters more than you know. We are responsible for creating a space where everyone feels welcome. He stopped for a moment and let the words sink in. I don't want anyone punished for mistakes. I want everyone to learn. Growth is more important than fear. The manager nodded, impressed with the calm authority in the man's voice. He could see the staff slowly beginning to understand the weight of what he was saying. The man continued, Yesterday I was judged before anyone even spoke to me. That's not right. And I don't want it to happen again, to me or to any guest who comes here. He paused, and then he added gently, I want each of you to think about how it would feel to be on the other side, to be treated unfairly, overlooked or dismissed. Let that guide your actions today and every day after. Several staff members exchanged glances. Some looked ashamed, realizing their actions from the previous day had caused harm. Others looked inspired, wanting to be better and to ensure no guest felt unwelcome again. Now, he said, we will have a practical session. We'll role-play different scenarios, checking in guests, handling complaints, and making sure everyone feels respected. This is not about rules on paper. It's about real human interactions. The staff divided into small groups. The man moved among them, observing quietly, offering gentle advice, and answering questions. His approach was calm and patient. No one felt judged. Instead, they felt guided. When he approached the receptionist, she looked at him nervously. Sir, I'm ready to learn, she said quietly. I know you are, he replied warmly, and I can already see the change in you. Remember, it's not about perfection. It's about awareness, effort, and respect. That's enough to make a difference. They continued the exercises for hours. The staff gradually relaxed and laughter began to fill the room as they learned through real interactions. Mistakes were corrected gently, not criticized harshly. By the end of the session, the mood was transformed. Confidence replaced fear, and understanding replaced judgment. After the workshop, the man took a few moments to speak with the manager privately. This is just the beginning, he said. Keep monitoring. Encourage growth. And don't let the old habits return. The manager nodded earnestly. Absolutely, sir. I'll make sure of it. As the day progressed, the man walked through the hotel again. Guests were now being greeted warmly. Bellboys assisted without hesitation, and the receptionist smiled sincerely at each person checking in. He noticed a change in her demeanor. She moved with purpose, but with kindness. The small gestures that had seemed ordinary before now carried genuine warmth. In the restaurant, the chef proudly showed him the new menu arrangements. The waiters had already begun applying lessons from the workshop, ensuring every guest felt welcome. A family arrived for lunch, and the receptionist greeted them with a smile, guiding them politely to a table. He watched from a distance, satisfied with the progress. In the afternoon, the man received a call from a business associate. They had just finalized another property deal, and congratulations were exchanged. Yet even with all the success, his mind kept returning to the hotel and the staff. Change at the human level, he thought, was the most meaningful success of all. Later, he sat in the lobby watching people come and go. Children laughed as their parents held their hands, travelers checked in with excitement, and employees moved efficiently and respectfully. The atmosphere felt completely different from the tense energy of yesterday. The receptionist approached him cautiously. Sir, may I ask you something? She said quietly. Of course, he replied, smiling gently. I just wanted to say thank you. For the lesson, for your patience, and for giving me a chance to change. I feel like a better person already. He nodded. That's all I hoped for. Learning, growth, and kindness. That's what matters most. Her eyes glistened. I won't forget this, she whispered. You don't have to, he said softly. Just remember it in how you treat people from now on. That's enough. As evening approached, the man walked toward the hotel's entrance again. The city lights were beginning to glow and the street buzzed with life. Staff waved to him as he passed, and he returned their gestures with calm acknowledgement. He paused for a moment at the front doors, looking back at the lobby. The transformation was visible. People moved with purpose, but now with kindness. The energy in the hotel felt brighter, lighter, and more welcoming than it had in years. He knew this was only the beginning. True change didn't happen in a single day. It required persistence, patience, and continued guidance. But the first steps had been taken. The staff had experienced humility, understanding, and growth, and that experience would shape the hotel's culture for years to come. He stepped outside, breathing in the cool evening air. There was a quiet satisfaction in his heart. He hadn't raised his voice, hadn't demanded obedience, and hadn't humiliated anyone. Yet by remaining calm, kind, and firm in his values, he had changed everything, and he knew that tomorrow would bring more opportunities to guide, to teach, and to see more growth in the people around him. He walked to his car with quiet confidence, knowing that the hotel was no longer just a building of rooms and furniture. It had become a place where respect and humanity mattered first, and that, he thought, was the real power of leadership. Next morning, the hotel felt alive in a way that no one had experienced before. The staff were moving quickly, but there was a new energy in the air, one of confidence, respect, and understanding. Even the receptionist, who had caused the trouble just 2 days before, walked with her head held a little higher, her movements careful and deliberate, as though she were trying to make amends with every action. The man arrived early, as he always did now, though he no longer needed to announce himself. The staff had grown accustomed to his quiet presence, his calm observation, and his kind guidance. Today he had something important to address, something that went beyond training sessions or new policies. He approached the reception desk and noticed a family entering the hotel. The parents were guiding their children, carrying bags and looking exhausted. The receptionist smiled genuinely as she greeted them. The man paused, watching quietly. Yesterday she might have been impatient, distracted, or dismissive. Today her smile was sincere, and the warmth in her voice reached the family immediately. The father's shoulders relaxed and the children's eyes widened as they looked around the bright, welcoming lobby. The man took a slow breath and turned toward the manager, who was standing nearby, clipboard in hand. "Let's have a private meeting," he said softly. "I want to discuss something important with the receptionist and you." The manager nodded. "Of course, sir." Terde was there. Her posture was stiff and her smile looked forced. She had heard the news late at night, when the manager called an emergency staff meeting to announce the ownership change. No one could believe it. The man they had seen waiting in the lobby for hours, the one who had been turned away, was now the owner of the entire place. When she saw him approaching, her face turned pale. Her hands trembled slightly as she pretended to type something on the computer. He stopped in front of her desk, calm as always. "Good morning," he said kindly. "How are you today?" She swallowed hard. "Good. Morning, sir. I'd like to have a cup of coffee in the lounge," he continued softly. "Would you mind letting someone know?" "Of course," she said quickly. "Right away." Her voice cracked a little, and she rushed to call one of the waiters. The man smiled gently, not to make her uncomfortable, but to show her that he wasn't here to humiliate anyone. He knew fear never taught people the right lesson. Understanding did. He took a seat near the window where he could see both the lobby and the busy street outside. A waiter soon brought his coffee, dark, steaming, perfectly made. He thanked him, then sat quietly for a few minutes, watching the hotel come alive. Guests checked out, bellboys carried luggage, and staff greeted people with smiles. It all looked so normal, yet he could sense an underlying nervousness. The employees kept glancing at him, whispering softly among themselves. Some smiled politely. Others avoided eye contact altogether. He didn't blame them. Change always made people uneasy, especially when it arrived in unexpected ways. After a while, the manager appeared, walking briskly toward him. His expression was a mix of respect and worry. "Good morning, sir," the manager said. "I'm glad you came. I wanted to personally welcome you again and offer any assistance you might need." "Thank you," the man replied. "I thought I'd stop by to see how things are running this morning." "Of course," the manager said quickly. "Everything is going smoothly. Though I must admit the staff are still processing the news." "That's understandable," he said quietly, taking a slow sip of his coffee. "It was quite a surprise for everyone." The manager nodded. "Yes, sir. I've worked here for 15 years and I've never seen something like this happen overnight." The man smiled faintly. "Well, life has its ways of teaching lessons at the right time." The manager looked thoughtful. "Indeed, sir. And I'd like to apologize again for the behavior you experienced yesterday. That's not how we want guests to be treated. I assure you we will make changes immediately." The man set his cup down gently. That's what I want to talk about, he said. I don't believe in firing people for mistakes, but I do believe in learning from them. The way your staff treat guests reflects the heart of this hotel. That's what we need to rebuild. The manager listened carefully, nodding. You're absolutely right, sir. I'll arrange a staff meeting right away. Please, he said, and I'll join you. Within minutes, word spread through the building. The staff gathered in the large meeting room near the lobby. Receptionists, cleaners, bellboys, cooks, and servers. Some looked nervous, some curious, others ashamed. The young receptionist sat in the back row, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. The man entered quietly. The room fell silent. He didn't stand at the front like a boss giving orders. Instead, he stood near the middle so everyone could see him up close. I know this isn't a normal morning, he began softly, and I know some of you are probably wondering what kind of person I am, or what I plan to do here. No one spoke. The air felt heavy with tension. I came here yesterday as a guest, he continued. I walked into this hotel just like anyone else, tired, polite, looking for a room. But instead of being welcomed, I was turned away, not because the hotel was full. Not because of a mistake, but because of how I looked. The room stayed quiet, but several faces turned toward the receptionist. She looked down, tears forming in her eyes. I don't say this to embarrass anyone, he added gently. We all make mistakes, but what matters is what we learn from them. You see, a hotel isn't just a building with rooms and furniture. It's a place where people should feel respected, no matter what they wear, where they come from, or how they look. He paused, his voice steady but kind. Yesterday I saw something that broke my heart. I saw people judged before they were spoken to. That shouldn't happen anywhere, especially not here. So we're going to change that. The staff exchanged glances. Some nodded slowly. I bought this hotel because I believe in its potential, he said. But more than that, I believe in people. I believe everyone here can grow. That's why no one will lose their job. Instead, we're going to rebuild this place with new values. Respect, kindness, and equality. He smiled slightly. That starts today. The manager stepped forward. Sir, that's very generous. Thank you. I'm not being generous, the man said calmly. I'm being human. There was a moment of silence before he continued. I'll bring in a training team next week to teach better guest service and communication. But beyond that, I want everyone here to treat every visitor like family, whether they arrive in a luxury car or on foot. The staff nodded, slowly relaxing. And one more thing, he said, turning slightly toward the receptionist. She looked up, eyes red but attentive. I know yesterday wasn't your best moment, he said gently, but I believe you can be better. We all can. Take this as a chance to grow. I don't hold anger and only hope. She pressed her lips together, fighting back tears. Thank you, sir, she whispered. I'm truly sorry for how I acted. He nodded kindly. Apology accepted. Let's make sure no one ever feels unwelcome in this hotel again. The room filled with quiet claps from the staff, small but sincere. The mood lifted, not because they feared him, but because they respected him. After the meeting, the man walked back into the lobby. The manager followed closely behind. That was powerful, sir, he said softly. You didn't just change a rule, you changed hearts. The man smiled humbly. That's what leadership should do. He spent the next few hours walking through the hotel, the restaurant, the kitchen, the housekeeping area, even the maintenance rooms. He greeted everyone he met, asking about their work and listening carefully. Some employees were shy at first, but his warmth quickly eased them. In the kitchen, the chef proudly showed him the menu. We try to mix local and international dishes, the chef said nervously. That's wonderful, the man said. Food brings people together. Keep doing that. He moved on to the housekeeping department, where a group of women were folding sheets and organizing carts. You all keep this place shining, he said with a smile. Without you, none of this works. They smiled, touched by the recognition. By afternoon, the atmosphere in the hotel had shifted completely. People were smiling more, greeting guests with genuine warmth. The receptionist, still shaken but inspired, began treating every visitor with extra care. She offered warm greetings, listened patiently, and even apologized to a few guests she had been short with in the past. The man watched from a distance, proud but humble. He didn't need praise. Seeing change in real time was enough. Later that day, he sat in his new office on the top floor. The view overlooked the entire city. buildings stretching toward the horizon, sunlight reflecting off windows. He sat quietly for a long time, thinking about everything that had happened. He remembered his younger days when people used to look at him the same way the receptionist did, with doubt, with judgment. Those moments had once hurt deeply, but they had also taught him something powerful, that success wasn't about proving people wrong. It was about proving kindness right. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. It was the receptionist again, standing nervously in the doorway. "Sir," she said quietly, "may I come in for a moment?" He nodded. "Of course," she stepped inside, clutching a small notepad. "I just wanted to thank you," she said, voice trembling. "Not just for forgiving me, but for showing me what respect really means. I realized yesterday that I wasn't seeing people, I was judging them. That won't happen again." He smiled gently. "That's all I hoped for. Growth." She took a deep breath. "If you'll allow me, I'd like to help train the other staff too. Maybe share what I learned." "That's an excellent idea," he said warmly. "I'd be happy for you to do that." Her face lit up, relief washing over her. She nodded, thanked him again, and left the office. He turned back toward the window, watching the city fade into the golden light of evening. A quiet satisfaction filled his heart. He hadn't raised his voice. He hadn't sought revenge, and yet the whole place felt different. Lighter, kinder, stronger. In the end, he thought, real power wasn't in owning a hotel. It was in changing hearts without breaking them. And as the lights of the city began to glow, he smiled to himself, knowing that the story of that one day, the day he was denied a room, would forever be the day this hotel found its true purpose. The next morning, the hotel felt alive in a way it hadn't before. Staff moved quickly but with smiles on their faces. Guests commented on the warm atmosphere, noting how the employees seemed friendlier and more attentive than ever. Word about the new ownership had spread quickly, and it was already changing how the hotel functioned. The man arrived quietly, dressed simply again. He didn't announce himself or demand attention. He walked past the reception, nodded to a few staff, and headed toward the manager's office. "The receptionist, Fro." The afternoon sun was soft and golden when a tall man in a clean suit stepped out of a black car and walked toward a big glass hotel entrance. He looked calm, his steps quiet but confident. He had just finished a long meeting across town and wanted nothing more than a place to rest, maybe a quiet dinner, and time to prepare for his next day. The hotel looked perfect from the outside, tall, modern, and peaceful. As he entered through the revolving doors, a cool breeze brushed his face, carrying the faint smell of polished wood and expensive perfume. The lobby was bright, filled with soft music and people checking in or out. A chandelier sparkled above the reception desk where a young woman was helping a couple with their room keys. The man walked up to the counter, smiling politely. He waited for her to finish. When she finally looked at him, her eyes flicked over his clothes, his face, and then to the bag he carried. Her smile faded a little. "Yes?" she asked flatly, her tone different from the warm one she used a moment ago with the couple. "Good afternoon," he said, keeping his tone friendly. "I'd like to book a room for one night, please." The receptionist tapped on her keyboard without looking up. "We're fully booked," she said quickly. The man blinked in surprise. "Fully booked?" He looked around. Guests were coming and going, and he had seen an online listing earlier showing available rooms. "Are you sure? I just checked online a few minutes ago." Her lips tightened. "Yes, sir. We have no available rooms." He hesitated, unsure if he should push further. He wasn't used to being treated like this. "Would it be possible to double-check?" "I don't mind a smaller room," he said kindly. The receptionist sighed and clicked a few more times. Her expression didn't change. "No rooms. Like I said, we're full." Behind him, another guest, a man in casual clothes, walked up to the desk. Without hesitation, the receptionist's face brightened again. "Welcome, sir," she greeted. "Are you checking in?" The new guest nodded, and she began typing eagerly. Within a minute, she handed him a keycard. "Here's your deluxe suite," she said warmly. The man who had been turned away watched silently. So there were rooms available. He took a deep breath, feeling something twist in his chest. He didn't want to cause a scene or embarrass anyone, but the disrespect was clear. He smiled gently, trying to keep his calm. "Excuse me?" he said softly. "You just gave that gentleman a room. I thought you said the hotel was full. The receptionist froze for a moment, then forced a laugh. Oh, that was a last-minute cancellation. He was lucky. I see, the man said. So maybe I'll wait a few minutes. Perhaps another cancellation will come through. She frowned, clearly irritated. Sir, please don't stand here. We have other guests. I'm not in a rush, he said with a small smile. I'll just sit in the lobby for a bit. He turned away, walked toward a chair near the window, and sat down quietly. The receptionist watched him for a moment before returning to her work, whispering something to her coworker beside her. They both laughed under their breath. From where he sat, he could see people coming and going, bellboys pushing luggage carts and guests chatting happily. He noticed a few people glance at him, maybe curious why he was sitting there with no luggage beside him. But he didn't care. He just wanted to breathe. He pulled out his phone and scrolled through some emails. Then he opened another app, one connected to his business network. The hotel's name appeared there, and a small smile spread across his face. He had actually been in discussions for months to acquire several properties in this very chain. This hotel, in fact, was part of that portfolio. The deal was supposed to be finalized within the week. He leaned back in his seat, almost amused now. He hadn't expected to visit one of his soon-to-be hotels this way, as a guest denied service. 2 hours. That was how long it would take for his team to arrive with the final documents. He made a quick call to his assistant. Can you have the papers ready sooner? He asked quietly. Yes, this location. I'll explain later. When he hung up, he didn't look angry or smug, just thoughtful. The way the receptionist treated him didn't make him bitter. It made him sad. Sad that people still judged others on appearances before words, before even a simple smile. As time passed, he watched her serve more guests. Each time her face brightened for some and stiffened for others. He could see the difference. A warm welcome for certain people, impatience for others. The pattern was unmistakable. At one point, a family walked in, a mother, father, and 2 kids. Their clothes were simple, maybe not what the hotel's usual guests wore. The receptionist's smile faded again as she told them there were no available rooms. The father sighed and led his children out quietly. The man sitting in the corner noticed. He felt the same sting again, not for himself now, but for them. He took out his notebook and made a few notes. Something about staff training and guest treatment policies. After a while, the hotel manager walked out of the back office, a man in his 50s with a tired expression. He nodded to a few guests before noticing the well-dressed man sitting quietly. Good evening, sir, the manager greeted. Are you waiting for someone? Yes, the man said kindly. I was hoping to get a room earlier, but I was told the hotel was full. The manager looked puzzled.
Full? That can't be right.
We still have several open suites tonight. The man smiled faintly. That's interesting. Maybe there was some confusion. The manager frowned and turned toward the receptionist. Can you please check again? He asked. She froze, nervous now. I thought we were at capacity, she stammered. No, we're not, he replied. Please book a suite for our guest immediately. The receptionist looked embarrassed but started typing quickly. Of course, she muttered, eyes down. But the man shook his head gently. That's all right, he said. I'll wait a bit longer. I think there's something I need to take care of first. The manager tilted his head. Are you sure? Yes, the man said calmly. But thank you for your help. The manager smiled politely and went back to his office, unaware of who he was really talking to. Minutes later, the man's assistant entered the lobby, a woman in a neat blazer carrying a folder. She approached him quietly. Everything's ready, sir, she said softly. The documents have been signed electronically. The confirmation just came through. Good, he said, standing up. Let's meet with the manager in his office. It's time. The assistant nodded and walked beside him. The receptionist looked up, surprised to see him heading toward the back. Excuse me, she called out. You can't go there without permission. He stopped and turned, his voice calm. I believe I have permission now, he said gently. In fact, I think I own the place. Her face went pale. What do you mean? She asked quietly. He didn't answer. He just smiled faintly and kept walking. Inside the manager's office, papers were laid out on the desk. Fresh signatures, seals, and digital confirmations. The manager's eyes widened as he read them. He looked up completely stunned. Sir, you're the new owner? The man nodded with a humble smile. As of an hour ago, yes. For a moment, the manager sat speechless. The air in the room felt heavy with surprise. Then he stood and shook the man's hand. "Welcome, sir." "We're honored. Thank you," he said kindly. "I'd like to start by reviewing how your staff treat guests." "I think there's room for improvement." The manager swallowed hard. "Of course. We'll fix it immediately." The man didn't mention the receptionist by name. He didn't have to. He believed in giving people a chance to grow, not in punishing them. Still, the manager knew exactly what had happened. When the man walked back through the lobby, everything looked different. The chandelier sparkled brighter. The same soft music played. Yet the atmosphere felt charged, like something unseen had shifted. He paused near the reception desk. The young woman stood stiffly, her face pale and eyes down. She looked like she wanted to apologize but didn't know how. He gave her a gentle smile. "I understand it's been a busy evening," he said softly. "I'll come back tomorrow to discuss some changes. Have a good night." Then he turned and left the lobby, the same calmness in his step as when he'd arrived. Outside, the city lights flickered on as the sun disappeared behind tall buildings. The night air was cool and quiet. He looked up at the hotel's glowing sign, then at the reflection of the sky in the glass doors. Sometimes, he thought, people need to see kindness and power to truly understand respect. He walked toward his car, the same calm expression on his face. Not angry, not proud, just thoughtful. Inside, he knew this wasn't just about a room or a rude receptionist. It was about something deeper, showing that dignity doesn't need to shout to be heard. The driver opened the door and he stepped inside. The car rolled away slowly, leaving the bright hotel lights behind. Tomorrow he would return, not as a guest, but as the owner. And the lesson would begin. The next morning, sunlight poured through the wide glass windows of the hotel lobby. The city outside was already awake, with cars honking and people hurrying down the sidewalks. Inside, everything seemed calm and polished again. The scent of coffee drifted through the air, and soft instrumental music played in the background. The man returned quietly through the front doors, wearing a simple shirt and jacket this time. He didn't bring an entourage or make a scene. To everyone else, he looked like another guest. But deep down, he knew the truth. The building now belonged to him. As he walked toward the reception desk, the same young woman from Yes